present with Chief Cruz. Before you get started, Chief, I do want to recognize our mayor and Mr. Leo Morris, also from a city commissioner from the city. We're happy to have y'all here with us today. Thank you. Chief.
Judge, Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity to come and provide you with a report about our animal services. As I understand, some of this came from questions that the commissioners had, basically as the actions of the Marshall Pet Adoption Center when it involved. I feel like I ought to turn around and talk to the commission, but I guess I'm going to face you. As far as the treatment or the actions when it involves county residents versus city, I think that's the understanding. And I think the answer probably is for me to provide you with just a report as to what we're doing, and not just in the fact of numbers, but also some of the challenges that we're dealing with as we're moving forward in this area. So if we can go, this is just a picture of the new facility. You guys have probably seen it. If you haven't, I encourage you to go by and take a look at it, have a tour. This was opened in 21. And I want to apologize in advance if I say council rather than commission. So I'm used to presenting to the city, but I'll try not to do that. This next slide, we've got to point this out, and you need to be aware. I do appreciate the sheriff, Lieutenant Fugler as well, who runs the jail. Going back to partnerships, this is an example of that, where the sheriff provides inmates the help cleaning that facility, because you got to understand that facility is run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as far as the animal care, and that's a large building, but there's a lot of animals in there, and without that help, really right now we wouldn't be able to even continue. So I think that's important to point out, and we appreciate the sheriff's office and the sheriff for doing that.
Chief, how many days do you get the inmates?
They're there 7 days a week. Yeah, they're there 7 days a week, and right now, and you'll see this in my report, but right now we have one full-time employee at the Marshall Pet Adoption Center. We have 3 openings. The council provided an extra animal control officer to try to address this, but right now we have 0 animal control officers. So we're working to hire, but it adds to the challenges, and I think just being aware of what we're dealing with and what our actions are and what we're trying to do is important. So that's really part of my goal, and I'll certainly answer any questions that you might have after that. So these are numbers. So since January the 1st until the end of the year, we have taken in 994 animals. So that's a total number. And that may, I don't know if that seems like a lot to you or not, but that's a lot of animals in a small building, right? And I'm not saying they're all in there at one time, but that's how many we had taken in. And then the other thing to point out, when we originally opened this, one of the challenges, one of the things we wanted to accomplish is reduce the euthanization rate of the animals. Now, you've got public safety, number 1, and then number 2, we work toward trying to come up with creative ways of getting those animals out of there. And so we partner with different groups. This highlights that. There's different organizations that help us with that. But it's just important to be aware of some of the things we're trying to accomplish as we're trying to manage that facility as well. The next slide breaks down the difference of how many county, how many city residents dropped off animals. And I've seen this change, but you can see 380 animals from the county were dropped off, 587 were dropped off from the city, and there's 27 that they can't tell. And bottom line is they were just dropped and nobody knows where the heck they came from. So we just put other. Could have been from the city, could have been from the county, we don't know. And last year, the year before, it was the opposite. We had taken in more county than city. So it varies, but we now have a program that we can run and we can pull that data. So every animal that comes into that facility, it's not the first question they ask, because that's not the most important thing, right? But at the end, that's a question. And it really only matters because if they're not a city or a county resident, we handle it differently. But we don't treat the county residents any different than we do the city. I think that's important that you know that. And that's one of the things I'm trying to point out, is that we are committed to working with the county, not just in the animal services, but in every way. And I think that's why the mayor and the council, just to point that out, because it is important. We're all working on the same things. We just have different responsibilities, and this is just one of those. Let me see. Marshall Pet Adoption Services is a drop-off, if you go to the next one, please, sir, is a drop-off facility only for residents of Harrison County with no charge. And I think that was a question. Now, their contract says that we can't charge the county, and that is true, and we do not. And then also, we don't treat the county residents, and I think you need to know that, any different. I said this now twice. If a person comes in, whether they're with the city or the county, our intake of those are the same. That talks about the Shelter Love software that we got last year. That really helps in providing reports. Now, you got to understand this. I put that in there maybe we can talk about it later, but due to the high population of disease concerns like parvo, we do have managed intake. But the managed intake means it's no different for the city as it is the county. So if there's an outbreak of parvo, which we've had, we stop all intake. Remember, I told you we have one employee there, so we have to follow the State Department of Health's rules of how many we can have in there. Now, we have gone over that at times, and we've worked to get it down, but we get to a certain point, we have to stop. We don't have a choice. We have to stop the intake. Now, my direction to the group is don't do that, right? But when we get to a certain level, we still have to. I mean, in other words, we're not doing it because we want to, we're doing it because we have to. And we're trying to come up with different ways of keeping those numbers down. And we'll talk a little bit about that. In fact, there's programs here. I'm pointing them out, not so much, mainly to show you some of the efforts that we're doing to keep that population number down so that we can still take intake. So we have volunteers. FOMA works hard. There's a number of volunteers that come in and they handle different aspects of that. The spay and neuter program within the city, that's something we're constantly trying to push, which is, I believe the answer to this. Places or cities or states that have heavy spay and neuter programs, they just don't have this problem. In fact, you see transports on there. So FOMA works with us, our people work together to transport those animals out of our shelter to other shelters. And I don't have the numbers. I don't know if they're in here. I don't see them. But there's many times that we're transporting 30, 40, 50 animals out of our shelter to other locations. Now, what does that do? That opens up more space for the residents to drop off additional dogs. So that's another way to try to keep that thing open other than just euthanization. So fosters, we have a large foster program, and I'd encourage anybody that was interested to take part of that. But those are people that take the animals home, again, taking them out of the shelter, making room for additional animals to be dropped off. So I want to point this out to you. In an effort to make our program better, to make us more efficient, more effective, to be able to take in more animals, we did develop an advisory committee for the Marshall Pet Adoption Center. It's comprised of animal care professionals. Many of them are veterinarians. They recommend policies and procedures and make recommendations about ordinances and but they give us ideas too how we can save money, which is always helpful. So what I'm trying to show here is we're trying to improve it constantly. We're making sure we're doing this the best way that we can. And because of some of the changes they've enacted, we've been able to make it more efficient and be able to take in more animals. This is kind of an advertisement, if you will, shameless advertisement. FOMA needs volunteers, so if some of your residents are interested in that, they have that opportunity. Path forward. The capacity has been reduced from 3 times capacity. Capacity is where the state says this is how many animals you can have, down to at capacity. So even though we've had 1 employee, we now have been able to accomplish that through changing our procedures. We've hired a new manager over that facility, and so we've been able to accomplish that. I think that's important, and I hope that encourage you to see that we're making improvements, to keep that thing open where we're taking animals as they come up to be dropped off. More proactive services for the residents, both the city and the county. And our new manager is really focused on customer service. He came from the industry, from the veterinarian industry, and really understands that, so I think that's been helpful. Intake has been improved, populations have been managed. A lot of that has to do with our new manager and the following the guidelines versus having maybe an old way of doing things. It made it quicker, more efficient, and more effective. Better care for the pets, we've actually improved that, which is good, and even reduced some of the costs. We definitely have innovative programs, partnering with FOMA and Best of Friends. These are different groups that help provide funding, donations. We have received some grants, which again helps that process as well. And of course, our commitment is working closely with Harrison County Sheriff's Office on critical instances. You may or may not know, there's been several occasions where we have gone out into the county with our animal control to help them. Now, our animal control officers aren't supposed to work in the county, they work in the city. However, like we work together, there have been times, I know there was a couple of years ago, they had a dog fighting ring, you may remember that, and we sent our animal control officers to help collect that. And then we held those animals for the sheriff's office throughout that trial season. So, and of course, we didn't charge them for that because they're also helping us. So it's kind of a two-way street. We're helping each other, and I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Every now and then, we might get a call from someone in the county that says, I thought they were supposed to take the animals if we bring them in, but I heard you say something to the point that you may have been over past days, and that the state only allows you. Can you just kind of touch on that a little more?
Sure. So I know that you get complaints, commissioners, judge, we do as well. I know the city commissioners are probably, they get complaints. And so I think it's a misunderstanding of what, A, the agreement is, and B, what we can do. I mean, I think the idea of you can only have so many animals and then care for them in one building, you can't just take them. Now, there's different ways of getting them out of there, and we do all the ways of getting them out of there. We try to manage that. But there's a point where, okay, they're full, we can't take them. We just can't legally take them. So the agreement is we won't charge for the animals. The agreement is not, nor could it be, that we take them no matter what. I mean, there has to be a schedule, certain times. If we're in limited intake, that would apply for the city and the county. But the goal here is to not have those occasions. And we've already reduced it from 300% over to capacity, but we're still taking those animals because we're also shipping them out through transports. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways we're getting them out. Foster, we've talked about that. So the goal is to keep the door open, again, during certain hours, and keeping in mind we have one full-time employee. I mean, that does affect our ability. As we move forward and are able to hire 3 animal control officers, that's going to make us more efficient, more effective, and more capable of doing that. So I think the misunderstanding may be, hey, I found a dog and I want to take it, I'm going to be facetious, but I want to take it in the middle of the night and I want someone to take it right now. I mean, that's not possible because we don't even have anybody there at that time. So, but someone may not understand that. They may have heard, well, we have to take all the dogs all the time, and that's just a misunderstanding. We are working very hard to take the dogs, but we've got to be able to have somebody there to do that. So they have times and schedules. People can call in and make those appointments. But again, when people don't understand that, I could see them being frustrated or thinking, well, they're supposed to take them and they didn't. And I think there's a little bit of that happening. But it's not because we don't want to take them. We take them when we can, and we're trying to increase the opportunity for us to be able to almost never close the facility. That's our goal, and that's what we're working toward. But I can assure you this, if we're not taking them, it's not just for the county, it's for the county or city residents. And we wouldn't take any from outside the county. Very limited. I mean, we almost never take them outside the county. Why? To keep them open for our citizens. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Where we at now? Challenges. Again, these challenges aren't excuses. These challenges making you aware of some of the things we're having to work through. The budget, the budget from the 24 is the same as the 25. I mean, that's a challenge because it's just a growing need for animal services. I think from the public, we understand that there's a lot of animals that need to be dealt with, and we're going to deal with them. But it's just a challenge. We talked about the employees. Currently, we have 1 manager and no animal control officers, so that the city did provide us, they increased the budget and added another animal control officer position, but we've yet to be able to fill it. And so, in fact, we're down to 0 animal control. So again, it's a challenge. It's not going to keep us from doing our jobs. It's not going to keep us from taking these animals. But I think it's important to understand what we're up against. Now, you can see these numbers compared to what we have. Now, the state, they like to throw out, okay, you need this many. That's 11. And again, we can't afford to have 11 people working there. We right now have 1, so to put that in perspective, we're working toward hiring 3 more, and it's been a challenge. We've been trying for 2.5 months, and we've not hired anyone. So that's a challenge. It's not an excuse, and it's not that we're keeping it shut, but I think it's important for you to understand that challenge. This next section, reporting, and really, I think the misunderstanding probably boils down to you receiving a report. So I'll take that as my no one's ever asked me, but it's not your responsibility to ask me, right? I should have thought of it and provided one, years ago. But now that I recognize it, what I am going to offer is that we will provide you with a quarterly report. I don't know that an annual report's often enough, and we can talk later and you can decide. We have the software that we can provide these reports. And I don't necessarily mean I'll be happy if you want me to come up and provide that report. We can email them, or at least provide you with the numbers. And if you have questions, then I'll come back. So if you have questions, I'll be happy to come back to the court and explain it. But I do think you having regular reports, and same thing for the city commission, regular reports, it might, at least you'd have the information.
Well, I think that's the big drawback for us, because we don't get those reports.
Right.
And we don't get the calls that say, hey, I took
Oh,
a
yeah.
pen of dogs down.
Right.
So all we get is, I took some down and they won't take them. Well,
Right.
you hear that 2 or 3 times and you think, well.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would love for you to, whether it's quarterly or every 6 months or whatever, when y'all generate a report, to just email it to the judge and he can disseminate it down to us, so we know when
Right.
we get the call that, hey, at this time frame during this quarter report, we were shut down because we were over capacity, we couldn't take any.
Right.
We didn't know that, so therefore,
Right.
every time we get caught,
Absolutely.
it's always the worst part of it. We just didn't have any information to go on.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I don't think any of us are not wanting to be part
Oh,
of it.
no,
I just
no.
want us to, we need to know those things, so when we do get those calls, we have a justifiable reason as to why y'all couldn't take them. And I think your reporting would be great now with the new software, whatever y'all deem to be necessary. It just give us the information to give the correct answer to the people.
Absolutely.
That's
And to have the information.
Yeah.
That way you need to know
Correct.
it. And same thing with city commission. We do an annual one, but as we're sitting here talking, I probably ought to send at least quarterly,
I'm sure they get the calls too, from their residents in the city, so I would think they would be as much as we do.
Right. So reporting, I'm thinking, is going to resolve the problem. Yes, sir.
It's kind of like, fixing the roads.
Right.
Or repairing the roads, we only hear from, people, when their road is not kept up. When the road is kept up, I hate to say this, but when we fix a road, and we fix it so good, people speed down that road, either kill themselves or somebody else, and then, we get phone calls that we fixed the road too good.
Yeah.
Now we need,
Speed bumps.
speed limit signs.
Right.
So it's 6 in 1 hand.
But information's important, and I think that's probably the takeaway, maybe for me at least, is, all right, we need to do that reporting across the board. Now, to be honest with you, this is the first year we've had that program. Before that, it was literally on paper and people had to go through it. So it's going to be much better, more efficient, and I think it'll be more effective for everybody. But anyway, that's if you go to the next slide. Really, I've just got questions. So, you guys have any questions that maybe I didn't answer, or any recommendations on the
I think you did a
report?
good job covering it, and I do think that a quarterly report would be nice. If we think that's too much or too little, we can communicate that later, but that'd be a good start. I appreciate that.
And then at the end of the year, when I do the city annual report, I can come over if you wish, if you want me to, and provide you with that, if that's something you're interested in.
You guys have any other questions for the chief?
I just personally want to thank you for coming in and clearing up, because like I said, in 10 years, I hadn't had anybody call
Right.
happy because, you know.
About
you know,
anything.
Hook 'em, yeah, or road, like that's different. But, you know, we just get the negative calls, so we don't have anything to base it on. And like I said, I think the greatest thing that could happen for all of us, city and county, would be to get those quarterly or every 6 months or whatever.
Right.
Or even when y'all are at full capacity, you just drop an email to the judge that says, hey, we're not, the intake's cut off, or we're over capacity or whatever. That way we know when we get a call that, hey, well, yeah, they can't take anymore, you know.
But we're working to get it
Right,
open,
right.
yeah. Okay.
I'd like to thank you, I'd like to thank our mayor,
Commissioner.
city councilman, ours, councils. Today, Marshall is our county seat. And I believe, me personally believe that Harrison County, and Marshall, that's where the strength of the county comes from. That's where the, I want everybody to hear, that's where the strength of the county comes from, is our partnership together. And I don't want, people thinking, well, maybe Hall, maybe Parks, and maybe Legion Fields, you know. Marshall is the county seat. And we should be great partners with one another, so that the rest of the county know
Right.
that we are partners and willing to work together.
And we are, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Judge,
I got
appreciate
a
it.
comment and some questions. To comment on, so yesterday, they took 60 dogs between Jefferson and Marshall, north. And the reason, and they carried them to North Shore because they're, this bay neutral all there, so they don't have an overpopulation. So they're able to adopt them out.
Where is North Shore?
Is in somewhere in New York, New Jersey, somewhere in that area?
So North Shore on that presentation was one of those organizations that we work with, and he's referring to the transports, that transport program. I think you went up there and saw the facility, and they were transporting 60 dogs out. And again, it's not just, they don't just work with us, they work with the area. I know they work
And
closely
60
with
dogs
Jefferson.
come From Jefferson and Marshall.
Yeah.
I think we were able to put like 30 dogs in there, something of that nature.
They transport them.
And so, and they do that, I don't know how often they do it, but they do it as much as they can.
As often as they'll take them.
Yeah,
Do y'all have any restrictions when someone comes into the facility to adopt locally, that they've got to spay or neuter this animal, or is that?
I know that we have discussed that being a requirement. And the reason being is that we're pushing for spay and neuter, and it seems to be, you know, well, I've been dealing with this for 7 years since I've been the chief, that seems to be the answer as far as stopping, because the last thing you want to see is dogs running around in the
Right.
streets, and whether it be in the county or the city. And areas that really manage that, they have a strong spay and neuter program. So my thinking is, if we're not even doing it, how can we ask others to do that? So we do that. Now, if it's a breeder looking for a dog to breed, now that, you know, that's
Well,
something
that's
maybe we have a
something else, yeah.
discussion, but we do, my belief is, yes, we need to make that a requirement for.
Well,
for the
you know,
spay.
I just know that in the years past, for years, that when they started coming in and setting up Farm Tractor Supply, I mean, it's cheap.
Yeah.
Considering the difference of, you know, so we've always taken what we, in our place, you know, and have one fixed where
Right.
I don't wanna deal with puppies or kittens or whatever, so to me, if somebody comes and adopts one around Christmas for a kid, their kid, and then the first, second week of January, the kid's through playing with it, now that it's turned it out. But if it had been spayed,
Then it's
then
not.
we hadn't got that problem, you
That's
know,
right.
so it's kind of and I don't know how you could require it, cause we don't deal with it, but I mean, to me, that's, if you want an answer,
That's the best answer.
that's the number one thing that can be done.
Correct. And there's even, that,
And they do, so most of the time, if they take a, and I'm talking about them, but I'm also on the board of the Humane Society. But anytime a dog comes in, that dog is, as long as it's capable, is spayed and neutered before it ever leaves, or before it ever is even adopted. Hardly ever let one get adopted that's not already spayed and Humane Society behind Walmart. And I know that the animal shelter brings dogs in, and I know that, Friends of Marshall Animals, they also give out free vouchers. So anybody in the community can come grab that voucher and get a dog spayed and neutered for free.
I think all that information somehow needs to be
Needs to get
promoted.
out.
It's on their page, so
Okay.
I think
Okay.
maybe we can take a look at what we have, send it to all of you and the commission, both the council and the commission, and share that out
I
there.
know years ago, the city, anybody could bring one down there was, especially for a male, that was a shot process. It wasn't surgical, it was a shot, and it was free, you know, and I mean, I don't know who paid for it, cause we brought one down. It was for everybody in the county, but that's been years ago, and I haven't seen anything like that, you know.
So there is free vouchers for anybody, and I know like with.
They adopt,
with our-
when it comes to the kennel and adopt one, they get a free voucher.
Well, no, adoption, sometimes they'll do adoptions for free, but adoptions are always charged, and they're not really charging that to make money, they're charging that to make sure that if that dog isn't someone that's gonna go fight it, someone that's not gonna take care of it. If you can't pay $50 to get a dog that's already had his shots, spayed, neutered, and all that, you're more likely you're not gonna take care of it anyway. So that's more of why they do that. They do run programs to where they'll give them away, you know, where the adoption fees waived.
Reduced.
Yeah, and they do that when they're mainly at capacity or something like that, or try, but then they still have to do that background check to make sure that, you know, to try, because adopting a dog out to a bad person is the worst thing.
They,
But I would also say too, that, and we're mainly talking about taking dogs in, our biggest problem is the breeding of the dogs and letting them loose and stuff. I got to visit with the new director up there, and one of the things that I liked about what he said, if y'all can ever get anybody to come to work, is having a more proactive to where, you know, the animal catcher is out in the city finding dogs that are loose, not just to pick up, but to find the owner and
Write a
give
ticket.
them a ticket.
Right.
Because that's the biggest thing, is an under-neutered, dog running around just constantly. That's the problem, is we're just overpopulated with dogs that aren't spayed and neutered, and people that don't care, that let them go, they run the streets, and there's no repercussion for that.
And our officers are writing tickets, but it's not like having 3 animal control officers out there doing it full time.
Right.
So we're doing it, but we're hamstrung a little until we can hire those people. And they also trap dogs, but we also have an issue with people releasing the trap dogs. So, you know, it's a challenging. I mean, dealing with animals and capturing them and managing them is not easy. But certainly we have people committed to that. Justin Cern is the manager. Lieutenant Ames supervises him, and, you know, it's a team effort, but he's very committed to it. And I think as we move forward and hire the animal control officers, it's going to continue to get better, and that's what we're working toward.
So so that was all the good stuff, but y'all say you don't ever hear it, and I actually carried 3 dogs the other day, and they took them, you know, so there's your another good one, which I rescue dogs, and I train them myself, and also, like I said, I'm on the board of the Humane Society, which has got nothing to do with that, but we're all working for the same goal. But one of my concerns, and I expressed it to Justin, is that, because I want to save every dog, I want to save every animal there is, but there's some animals that aren't going to get adopted, no matter what. They're aggressive, the breed that they are. If a dog has been there so long, and I expressed this to Justin, you know, I think trying to be a complete no-kill shelter is also hindering. There needs to be more hard decisions made on euthanizing, you know, animals that aren't going to ever be adopted out or can't go on transport or something like that. Just simply because that frees up room for dogs that may not be taken in that could have been adopted.
And
That was my biggest.
let me respond to that. I think that's a good question. Number one, you're going to see a zero-kill facility. We were given the recognition as being a zero-kill facility. But that does not mean that we don't euthanize dogs. That means that you don't adopt. It's 10% of the intake, adoptable dogs. So we do euthanize dogs, and certainly vicious dogs that aren't adoptable or injured. I mean, we do that. Now, again, that's something that a lot of people will get upset with me for saying maybe, but we have responsibility. I mean, it's not humane to keep a dog Well, it's certainly a public safety issue, but it's also a humane issue for the animals as well. Even the facilities that manage, who decide who's no-kill and who's not, will say that it's not proper to put a dog in a cage and leave it there forever. I mean, so we are managing that. Don't misunderstand zero kill facility for the fact that we don't euthanize animals when we need to, or when we must.
I do have one positive story I'd like to share. Young man, his dog, I guess he lost his dog, and he ended up at Richard and Christina Anderson's house. And they took the dog in, they cared for the dog, and they decided they would take the dog down to the animal shelter. And got him shots and all that, and they then washed him up, and all of a sudden his owner walked in and said, "That's my dog." And the dog was so happy he run to the owner. You know, so that's some good stories to be told about that as well.
And the biggest thing is it's a community thing. Everything is put on that animal shelter. It's a community thing of spaying and neutering, helping out. And another good story is that we had enough phosphorus, or y'all had enough phosphorus coming in, where no animals had to sleep in the cold, here in the cold.
Right.
Someone came in and took, all the dogs that were on the outside. People came in and took them dogs home last week and brought them back.
Right.
Warmed up, but they took them home just so that no animals were sleeping outside.
Well, one of the biggest problems is people don't take responsibility for it. I mean, there's a
Correct.
lot more than just going and getting one and putting a bowl of water and little food out. I mean, it's your responsibility as an owner to maintain and see that you take care of that, So, it's a challenge, I know, and I said, I appreciate you a bunch for coming and giving us the information. We had this same questions 9 or 10 years ago. We got the pad of stuff, and it was, you couldn't even disseminate as to where they come from.
Right.
So I'm tickled now that y'all are able to track and report. Now we've got ammunition when we get caught.
Well, the truth, you got the facts,
Yeah, right.
and we look at the facts, and we can adjust things as we need
Yeah,
to.
so we appreciate, what y'all are trying to do.
Okay.
Very good.
Chief,
Thank you.
Commissioner Hatfield, you had a question earlier, you got an answer?
Stephen went over. it.
Very good. Lieutenant Ames, no comments from you? No, sir. All right. Mayor? Yes, ma'am.
Just as a comment, honestly, it's a downside and a positive when you look at it. The problems you have with stray animals murder, and the thing is, most of the country has solved this. The southeast has not. But we have models out there of effective policies that have helped reduce this problem. Like you mentioned, we're sending, 50 and 60 animals at a time to different regions of the country because some shelters are empty and there's a need for dogs and cats to be adopted. So
about it, to look into the possibilities of what's out there in grants as far as spay and neuter programs that we could possibly apply for as a team between the city and the county, to see if there's not something out there where we couldn't fund a pretty good spay and neuter program, for people that want to adopt and, you know, and just like y'all manage it where it's done when they take it on, you know.
And you're hitting on what would be the ideal, and that was when we built the new facility, y'all are reporting in those planning sessions, looking at the plan. We did put a small medical facility in there, so it would be, our goal one day is that pets would all come out there as favored. So no one would even leave. Right now, because we don't have the funding to be able to do that, all that in-house, so to speak, the vouchers and making people aware of the programs we do have is kind of the best educational component. Having the vouchers is kind of the best we can do right now, but that would be, I mean, that would be honestly one of our, besides getting our animal control officers out. I think Chief would probably agree that we work on this, immediate needs, but it is expensive because obviously you need veterinarian, a little more equipment, and, you know, they need assistance as well to do those things. But that would be the dream.
And let me make one more comment that the Tim has been aware of. So there was a time that FOMA did have those free vouchers available. Now it's kind of a case-by-case basis because they ran out of money to fund it. So FOMA funded that, and then they've been providing assistance with several things. We have gotten grants for some of that, and so that money's been used up. So he was just pointing out there's no guarantee if someone goes down there for a voucher right now that there is one. So there are times when there's funding for it and we provide it, and there's times that we do not. So just to make that clear.
Well, I was thinking, you know, and y'all sound like y'all have applied, but I'm sure that on the county side, you know, we probably haven't. So that's why I say, you know, if we could go out and look for some type of grant,
Sure.
you know, that would be available, that could just flow through and pump right into your voucher or spay and neuter programs, because, you know, it's just as big a problem for us out rural as it is in the city. So, I mean, there's no doubt that if you want to address your problem, you're going to have to get it countywide, in order to do that. So, you know, I think we see the packs more, don't see the packs of animals out in the county because they're not as confined as what they are in the city, but I'm sure they're there. I mean, you know, but it is an issue, and it's not just a city problem. I mean, so.
The mainly becomes a big county problem because most of the dogs drop up there.
Well,
That's
it,
the county road, and I probably walked through with a lot of.
well, it's pretty sad, but I mean, that's been happening forever.
And it's going to
It'll
continue. That's
continue.
not gonna change.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things like with when I pick them up though, I pursue myself, but with the Humane Society or when they can, with the city or French Marshall Animals, even if I'm not gonna keep them, the first thing we do is spay them, and that way when they go to another home, you know, they're already spayed. Because that's the biggest thing.
Exactly.
That's the biggest thing, is the dogs running around here constantly having babies.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Chief.
Appreciate it.
A couple more items and we'll wrap up.
Is this the chief's?
It is, it sure is. Under new business, our item number 2 is consideration and action to approve the following elected official bonds and to authorize payment of the bond premiums for the respective budgets as follows. That's Commissioner Hatfield, Commissioner Coos, Judge George, Constable Hickey, Constable Moore, Constable Weatherall, Constable Griffin, Judge Moran, and Sheriff Fletcher. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Timmons, second by Commissioner Ebarb. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 4-0. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Timmons, second by Commissioner Ebarb. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. It's 10:31 a.m.
Who made the motion? Second. I did. I made the motion.
Timmons, Ebarb.
2 and 4. Okay.
Thank you all.